Good morning to you. Stop biting me. Stop biting me. I hope you're well. On this Sunday morning, the 11th of September, September the 11th, obviously marking the anniversary of September the 11th here in Australia now, from 2001, the World Trade Center attack. And obviously, we're now also marking this day as the day that Afghanistan, or in particular Kabul, fell after some rather disappointing mismanagement. But I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in the world. Yes, dog, you may leave now. All right, don't leave then. So what's happening? This is the SitRep, the situation report. What's happening today? What's going on? I get a call. This morning, followed up a follow-on from some messages from my very good friend in Sweden, who's sent me a message from the Swedish government website where they're sending out to people saying, hey, this is what you're going to have to do right now. Okay? Not to come. What you're going to have to do right now. This is some of the recommendations because people are getting cold. I want to remind you of where we are right now. September in Sweden, we're going from summer into autumn. So it's not freezing cold there yet. But already, according to my buddy, my bro over there, they're already having power cuts in the south. So they're already, places like Stockholm obviously is in the south. So for those who don't know, Sweden, kind of a long, tall country, a strip of a country that goes up and down. And there is a bit of separation between the north and the south of the country. They're not like separate, totally separate or anything like that. But there's, when you're there and you kind of talk to people who are like, oh yeah, that person from the north or these towns in the north. And then you've got the south, which is, I guess, kind of considered more of the developed, the city sort of part of it, being that you got places like Gothenburg and Stockholm and Malm and all those sort of places down there, the big cities down there, and then you got the maybe more akin to rural or outback type areas up north. So that's the way they think of it. The other split, the other very, very interesting split with Sweden here is that the generation of resources and power comes in the north, not in the south. So maybe similar to if you're an Aussie, you'd think about it like this. You think maybe Western Australia, you've got a lot of resources that are being pulled out of the ground. Maybe, growing a lot of stuff. You've got more up in the tropical, subtropical sort of areas up north. But then you've got your cultured, livable cities like Melbourne and things like that down south. And it's a rough analogy. It doesn't really work in Australia, but just so you get that in your head, how Sweden's sort of structured. Because in the north, they apparently don't have any energy problems. In the south, they're having to cut power already. They're cutting power. And it's not like they're using a whole heap of power. It's not like they're freezing yet. So come winter, it's going to be pretty bad. So the government of Sweden has come out and said, and I've chucked it through Google Translate, so this is the translation of it. 5 things you can do to keep yourself warm right now. 1, wear warm clothes. Oh, brilliant. 2, use body heat. Body heat is an important source of heat. If there are several of you in the home, feel free to gather in one room and sleep together. Thanks, Swedish government. Insulate windows. Remember to ventilate properly your house. But number 3, this one was a cracker. Build a hut. If you're alone, you can build a hut to sleep in. For example, under a table with blankets that hang down to insulate the heat. Build a blanket fort in your home. Now, all these are actually like really, really good ideas for emergency prepping. If you're thinking about like, oh, I'm in a house and I can't heat the house and I don't want to freeze to death, you can insulate your windows. So having something that you can put up against windows, because the thermal properties of windows is not very good, especially in places like Australia where we don't generally have double glazed windows. Really good idea. Yep, sure. Chuck things up there. Board up your house, make it look like a crack den. Gathering people in one room and maybe only heating one room. Thinking about your layers that you actually wear and what clothing, your appropriate clothing choices, and building smaller areas within larger areas so that you can heat them more effectively. These are all really great ideas. If, say, you were in a very cold climate and there were power outages. You're in a very developed country here, Sweden. You're in a very developed country and you're not cold yet. You'll know this because you guys know cold much more than we know cold. And you already got this information coming out. But this is the kind of information that should be, hey, if things go wrong, do this. Not, hey, this is what you could be doing right now. That this is a telling sign. I read this. He sent it to me and he goes, what a freaking joke this is. And I'm like, I agree, this is a joke, but it's also a very disturbing joke. This is terrifying. Terrifying. The government is telling people to do this in Sweden right now. I don't know how they're going to fare during winter if they're already experiencing power cuts. The other interesting thing he was telling me is the North obviously has an abundance of electricity. They can't get it down south. They don't have the infrastructure to get it down south. They haven't invested in the infrastructure to get it down south. They've just wound down 2 nuclear plants, so they're shutting down 2 nuclear plants. They're still going towards that. They've also got energy deals with Norway and possibly Denmark, he was saying, where they've got locked in energy sharing contracts where rather than turn the power on for people in Sweden and let them have it, they're obligated to send that energy over to Norway or to send that energy down to Denmark. So, these sort of political alliances are more important. These sort of contractual agreements are actually more important than pleasing your own people. And I've talked about these things in the past, especially Germany, with the elected officials coming out and saying, no, we're going to do this. And it doesn't matter how cold you get, doesn't matter how hungry you get, we're still supporting Ukraine. So, I think this is, pretty disturbing signs. Some of the numbers he was giving me this is from his personal experience as well. This isn't like second or third hand information. This was actual bills that he or his family had to pay. 10,000 krona, which I think it's 1 to 7 Aussie dollars. So maybe we're looking at around 2.5 grand bill for gas or electricity. I can't remember which one, gas or electricity. I think it was electricity. For running, it was a facility. So some of his family runs like a Airbnb or B&B type thing, not Airbnb thing. It was 10,000, and this is going back 2 years. Last year, that increased to 50,000. So from 10,000 to 50,000 last year, a 5 times increase within a 12-month span. Now, he's saying this because he's like, well, the bill's coming due, and everybody is like, if it's already gone up 5 times last year, what are we expecting this year? Like, how far can it go? And what's going to happen? People are just not going to be able to afford this. Affordability crisis, access crisis, because they're turning off the power in Stockholm. Any people who have been to Stockholm will know this is not a city that is in any way, shape, or form poor. This, my experience in Stockholm, I was like, this is a beautiful, clean city. This is extremely developed city. This is a rich city. Okay, this is probably one of the hallmarks of the developed world as we think about it. That's what Stockholm is. If they're experiencing blackouts now, before they're even having to hit the peak period where it actually gets cold there and they have to turn on heaters, then this is a disturbing sign. So that was my Sunday morning, everyone. But it was great to catch up with my mate over the phone and hear from him, because he's a dead set legend and a prepper. He's preparedness minded as well. He can see what's going on. His eyes are open, and he is doing all the things that need to be done, and that's what we should all be doing. And then, at least talking with his family about it and trying to encourage people around him to do it as well. And that's what this is all about for me, is just trying to encourage each other to do it, to encourage each other to go further, to keep continuing down our path of preparedness and self-reliance, and to hopefully bring other people into the fold. That's what this is all about. Kieran says, America is developed too. Widespread and long power cuts throughout many states in the US. Here we go. Yep, it's a happening. All right, let's jump into the news right now. Australia. Left-wing Greens Party calls for Republic hours after the Queen's passing. Full disclosure, all right. There was a time a few years ago where I was extremely frustrated about what was going on environmentally within Australia, and I felt like I had no other options, and I started to turn towards the Green Party. And I delved into them and I saw what they did, and I started really picking apart their policies. And since then, I have turned my back wholesale and ran the other way. In fact, like, I thought, well, it's pretty clever going green because the environment's green. You know what else is green? Sewage and snot, putrid things, algae that has overgrown lakes. That's also green, disgusting things. And that's what I think about the Green Party now. On the whole, I'm not saying that their environmental policies are bad. They're very good, but a lot of the other things that they're trying to do is bad because they are part of this utopian idea, this idealistic thinking that is not based in reality. But anyway, this doesn't really have anything to do with this. I just thought this was like just really poor timing. It's like, oh, the Queen is dead. Now we should have a republic. Give it a sec, man. Like, can we wait till her body's cold? Can we wait till they're like we get through the funeral? I have a real problem with this habit nowadays of this progressive left. Not to say that I don't consider myself progressive in many ways, and that I don't consider myself left-leaning in many ways also. I just really hate this idea that we have to destroy everything old. It's like, well, hang on. Like, there are things we can take from this that we can still be proud of. That is the actual history. In fact, you, Adam Brandt, have the ability to stand up in front of your microphone and talk right now because of what the great British Empire did. And I'm not saying what they did was good or bad, but they did do it. You got to look at it and go, yeah, well, we have what we have today because of the circumstances that brought us here. And the British Empire is part of that. And whether you like it or not, we are still part of that. Turning a blind eye to it, throwing it, burying it in the ground isn't going to stop that. Should we become a republic, though? Maybe. I don't know. I might actually, my jury's out. But I just thought the timing was really interesting for that. Or poor, really. Okay, let's jump over to India now. India is, I think, the top rice exporter in the world. Well, they're curbing their shipments. This has been signaled for a long time, but the actual information has now come out. What they're seeing is imposition of levies. They're seeing the actual rice come out, the amount drop. We're seeing that actually play out now, as opposed to it just being something that was talked about. This is obviously sparking a lot of fear throughout the world in the terms of what's happening with the food crisis that we're looking at already. And this is going to add to food prices. Rice, historically speaking, being one of the staples of the world, and being, because it's one of the staples, and vice versa, it is one of the staples because of the price, that it is relatively cheap to get out there. This is obviously going to increase the price of rice. Increasing the price of your iceberg lettuce has an effect, okay, on the food system. But there are more people who eat rice than people who eat iceberg lettuce. So the increase in rice is exponentially more impactful to the world than any other product apart from wheat, I would say. Wheat, grain, these sorts of things, corn, rice, any of those, the big exporting staples. Any increase in price that we're going to see of these things is going to have huge effect. And I'm not talking about effect on people who are eating KFC and going, "Oh, we have to have cabbage on my fucking Zinger burger now." No, this is hundreds of thousands. This is billions of people now having to face that tough choice of like, can I afford food, or can I afford to pay rent? Can I afford food, or can I afford to get to work to get the money to pay for food? Can I afford food for me and my children? Which children can I afford food for? Can I feed them and me? That's what we're starting to barrel towards, just to give everyone a reality check of what's happening here with the food system. All right, what else we got? Let's jump into Europe now. This one sent to me from one of my sources on Instagram who is talking about, or showed me a story that's coming out about Poland. The Poland's prime minister has come out and who has been, pretty vocal of late, and especially talking about what's happening with Ukraine, talking about Germany in particular. And you would have heard me talk about this before, about the whole repatriation, give us money for what you did to us in World War II type thing. Well, he's at it again. Germany's policy has caused enormous damage to Europe. The German government failed in the Ukraine crisis and owes Poland billions in reparations, says Prime Minister Mateusz. It's Polish Matthew, I'm pretty sure. Mateusz Morawiecki. I'm going to have to work on that one. Polish is not so good. What we're seeing here, and there was also these rumblings that he's saying, hey, the EU policy, what's been happening recently, it's all anti-Polish. It's aimed at us. It's very us versus them. And we're seeing this kind of talk throughout EU, not everywhere, but in a number of countries right now, where they're saying, hey, we don't feel like we're being represented in the EU. We actually feel like this is anti-us, anti-our country. This is hindering our country, and it is working for your country. The things you do, you don't take into consideration our country. This is, again, another one of these big signs that we're seeing within the EU, that it is fractious, that it is, I would actually say it looks like it's kind of falling apart at this stage. It's not at the point of falling apart, but you can see where the stitching is starting to stretch right now within the EU. All right, what else we got going on? UN chief appeals to the world for helping flood-ravaged Pakistan. So those Pakistan floods, which have been horrific, the UN chiefs obviously checked it out and said, like, this is pretty serious. Like, the world, we need to pitch in here and help out. Quote, today it's Pakistan. Tomorrow it could be your country, he said. Just heads up, tomorrow it could be our country, but yesterday it was our country. Australia, we had horrific floods a few months back. I think, everyone gets focused on countries. I mean, the problem here is the instability, and the system that was already there in Pakistan wasn't able to support this catastrophic event. Whereas in Australia, when we had that catastrophic event actually occur to us, we could support it. And we didn't support, here's the interesting thing, we didn't support it necessarily through government action either. I've talked about this before. We supported it through, initially, community action. It was the community who pulled together, sometimes not very well, I will admit. I went up there and I talked about this with the floods, with the hippie community up in Byron Bay. My summation of it was pretty poor in some respects, but on the whole, they did step up. People stepped up, they helped out, and the people that had the skills got in there and got the work done. And I hope that the people who didn't have the real life skills took that as a lesson and went, oh, okay, yep, real shit can happen in the world. I'm going to need to actually learn some real world skills now. But yeah, we had the ability, and people are rich enough in our country to actually support it. Yes, even our penniless hippies here in Australia are rich enough to support helping each other out in these times of crisis. Pakistan, however, not so lucky. So they're hurting over there. I just thought that was a really interesting little quote, though. Today it's Pakistan, tomorrow it could be your country. It could be. That could definitely happen. Russia appears to be pulling out of certain areas of the Ukraine. Now, this is really interesting to me because I'm looking at this and I'm putting my military hat on now, and I'm going, okay, they're pulling out. What could be happening here? They're bleeding money. They're bleeding personnel. It's stagnated. They're being pushed back. They're pulling. Maybe the West propaganda machine is correct and saying that we're doing it. Ukraine is doing it. We're winning. If you actually look at the battle lines, though, I look at it and I'm like, this looks interesting. If I was going to set a trap for Ukraine at this particular point on the lines, there's a bulge where Ukraine goes in, and there's actually a squeeze. And I'm like, this is a perfect spot for Russia to actually pull back, draw in Ukraine forces and close them off and kettle them, or what police forces normally call kettling, which is you segregate an area and let it sort of work itself up and burn itself out, and then just come through and sweep it out. So that could be happening. I don't think Russia's dumb. I don't think they're doing it accidentally. The Western propaganda machine that I was listening to on the radio this morning were talking about Russians wholesale pulling off uniforms and walking over the lines back home and going, no, I've had enough. Really made it sound like the brave people of Ukraine are actually crushing Russia. And I'm sorry, I just don't believe that. I just looking at this from the whole, I'm like, no, I don't believe any of that. I don't think that's actually happening. I don't think Russia is anywhere near capitulation on this. I think Russia has achieved some of its strategic goals and has not achieved other strategic goals it would have had, but is looking at this and going like, we're sitting in a pretty good position now. What we're doing, we can afford to start pulling people back. This area we don't necessarily need right now. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what transgresses in this area in the next couple of days. Back over into the EU now. Hungary is on the edge of abyss, says the Czech minister. So interesting stuff that's happening in and around this area as well. Hungary being like, well, are they pro-Russia? Are they anti-Russia? What's going on here? And this isn't just Hungary either. There is a number of different countries, and they're using these sort of terms like pro-Russia, Nazi, all these sorts of things to kind of throw shade at each other now, because the ability is there and the world can go, what? They're doing what? Oh, yes, we should go against them. And, watching where people lie, how they, what sort of side they fall out on, how willing they are to please the people and go, no, that's not us. Quick, yes, let's send some more stuff over to Ukraine. Look, we're part of we're towing the line here. We're fine. But Hungary has been getting pushed more and more onto the outer here. But the only thing I'm highlighting here is, again, the fractious nature of the EU. That it is another of those stitches that I'm looking at and going, this is strained here. This is very strained. Okay, jump over to the US now. The national rail strike that has been kind of on again, off again for, say, maybe 3-4 weeks now. And that could have a huge effect on their economy as a whole, but on the supply chains, on that chain that goes from ports, gets out through the country. A lot of stuff still travels via rail in the US. So they've been having this sort of labor, wage increase, loggerhead type thing going on. Well, they're getting to the point now where they've got a deadline and they're saying, yeah, we're going to have to make this decision, which is actually on September 16th. So 5 or 6 days, US, I think you're still on the 10th of September. 6 days to go before this. And at that point, the unions can actually strike. And they're planning to. They're saying, yes, we're planning to. So, it's not written in stone. Certainly 5-6 days is a long time when it comes to these sort of trade disputes, and anything can happen in between now and then. But it's something that's looming. And if I was in the US right now, I'd be looking at that and go, crap. All right. That could be increased problems within the supply chain, and which will equal increased inflation as well amongst certain goods. If there were certain things that I was sitting on, I'd be going, yeah, I want to go buy those things now if they are available. But just be aware of that if you're in and around the US. Then, again, talking about these weather effects in California. So tropical storm threatens floods in the wake of the wildfires. So I was talking about this yesterday. So more information coming about this. This is Tropical Storm K. The name K, K-A-Y. K, due to hit on Friday. Soaring temperatures overnight. The wildfires apparently have doubled in size throughout California. So a lot of issues with the wildfires going on there. Now, the good part about this is that a tropical storm coming in is going to dump a lot of rain and could actually help alleviate that. It could bring down the temperatures, and obviously rain could help put out the fires. 2020 in Australia, that's what we saw here, where we were getting to a point like the fires were continuing. They were sweeping back through already burnt country at some points. And then we had floods. And that was the actual thing that put the nail in the coffin of the fires, of that horrific fire season for us, was flooding. And that's what I think is going to happen here. That's what happened up in Canada, or similar sort of weather pattern happened up in Canada. We saw, this is going back last year, sorry. Horrific fires, huge fires. Obviously, that has a pretty dramatic effect on the atmosphere that's going on around there, but then encourages rainfall to actually happen. So that's what we're getting into now across the world, is these cycles of drought, fire, flood, and then possibly drought again, fire, flood. That's what we'll be seeing. Maybe we'll scrap the seasons. We'll be forgetting about it, or we'll add in more seasons. So we'll just have like flood season, fire season, drought season, a little bit of summer. Maybe Easter is squeezed in there somewhere. Oh, look, there's some flowers. Bang, let's call it Easter. It's cold again. Oh, now the world's on fire. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? All right, last story that I want to talk about, and this one isn't like world events or anything like that. This one is a perspective-changing story where I read stuff like this and I'm like, all right, yep. Wrap your head around this, you developed country person, you. I'm talking to myself there, not particularly you. But, if you're sitting there and you're thinking life's hard because whatever, I can't pay bills and blah, 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 just think about this sort of stuff. Think about living like this. Woman fights off tiger with bare hands to save baby son. A 25-year-old, Achana Chudhari, was in a field on the outskirts of Banghavgarh Tiger Reserve when a fully grown tiger appeared from the bushes and began to drag her 1-year-old into the undergrowth. Achana managed to wrestle her son away from the tiger, receiving serious injuries on her back, waist, and arms in the process, as well as a punctured lung. Her screams brought locals running, and they chased the tiger away with sticks before rushing the young mother to hospital. Amazingly, her son had only minor injuries, and both are expected to make a full recovery. So if you're kicking around on this Sunday feeling sorry for yourself for whatever reason's going on, just remember, you could be fighting off a tiger right now. I don't like to hear stories like this, but I like to read these sorts of things just to remember, like, for the vast majority of the existence of the human species, we have been locked in a struggle for survival, which means we've had to do things like fight off wild animals with our bare hands. And this story here, this is something that I teach people, and I was teaching this to people on Friday when I was teaching diplomats self-defense. And some people go like, oh, I don't know if I could ever do this. And I like to remind people, you are living testament within your own being, the fact that you are here. This thing here, this fleshy vessel that you are currently piloting around, is hundreds of thousands of years of survival technology that has built upon success, upon success, upon success. That's what you are. It is all there within you. You are a survivalist. You can do it. You can fight off a tiger with your bare hands. If a 25-year-old mother can do it, you can do it. Anybody can do this. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what things you think are actually restricting you from doing it. You can do it. You can rise up against these things because it is within us. It is within us to do it. And I just want to remind everyone of that this morning. Things can look grim, but all they are challenges for us to accept and to rise up against. We have the ability to do it. It's all built there. It's all within us. So carry that within you and carry that without into the world today on your Sunday. It's very preachy Sunday. The Church of Prep is in. Go forth and be prepared, y'all. Have a great Sunday wherever you are. Wisdom of gurus too. I'm not your guru. You're your own guru. The guru is you. Yeah, I hope you have a great Sunday. I hope you use this day. It's sunny here, so I'll be using it to do some cool stuff. I don't know what it'll be, but I'll definitely go out and get some vitamin D today. Hope you're all well. As always, keep your eyes open. Stay safe out there. The world is a crazy and sometimes dangerous place, whether it be maniac human beings with firearms or knives or, motor vehicles, whether it be crazy weather effects, or whether it be a rogue tiger dragging your 1-year-old off into the bushes. Keep aware, keep your eyes open, stay safe out there, and as always, Semper Paratus.